So with transmission, there are several ownership types. So if you are a developer developing projects for connection to transmission, yeah, you may be dealing with one or several of these different types of ownership structures. And this includes investor-owned utilities. They sell stock, so they're publicly owned. Then there are government agencies such as the US government and municipalities. And then there are cooperative generation transmission organizations, and these co-ops are actually owned by the members that they serve. And one of the primary purposes of transmission, and this was the intent ever since the start of the industry back before 1900, was to connect large generating sources to the load centers where the load is concentrated, say in the middle of cities. Of utmost importance is the safety and reliability. Keep the lights on for abnormal conditions, and abnormal conditions happen all the time on transmission. You get short circuit faults due to lightning or, tree contact or other reasons. There are a lot of different causes of abnormal condition on transmission, but the transmission providers have to ensure that the system stays reliable. And when they're connecting new generation to the system, what entails is a lot of different studies and analysis to make sure that the new generation isn't going to mess up the reliability of that existing transmission system. Now, there are other types of organizations in the transmission industry besides the transmission owners that we just mentioned. And the two types of organizations you'll hear a lot about are ISOs and RTOs. And if you are connecting new generation to a transmission, you very well may run into the ISOs and RTOs because they're the ones that actually run the queues. And for the most part, they do the studies or they work with the transmission owners or consultants in order to do the interconnection studies. But ISOs and RTOs, for the most part, they're the same for our purposes with very minor differences. And there are 7 of them in the US, as you see here, plus there's 2 more in Canada. And there are multiple purposes of these ISOs, RTOs, but one of the biggest ones is when it comes to interconnection is providing what they call non-discriminatory access to the electric grid, meaning that any generator or load who wants to access the grid can do so as long as they meet certain qualifications or certain requirements, and in many cases, if they help pay for system upgrades. Some of the other purposes of ISOs, RTOs include the grid operation, the monitoring, the management in the region that they serve. They're in charge of generation dispatch to keep the generation supply and demand in balance. And they also do a regional planning and reliability modeling and planning. So they do quite a bit.